yeah. So this is going to be one of those sort of fireside chat where, you know, you have this sort of fire behind you. We pretend that you've just come in, we're just chatting, and oh, we didn't see you there. Hi.
Hi.
We're very casual. It's very chatty. That's what it is. Yes, welcome everybody. It's really exciting to see you here, and it's a really full room, so I really appreciate you sitting like you are. It gets a little warm in here, so if you're really feeling terrible, you can open the windows, and don't throw yourselves out, but I mean, you know, let the air in specifically. So, you know.
We'll keep it light.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yes, we're going to keep it relatively light, so hopefully no defenestrations.
Hopefully no one's going to want to throw themselves out the window.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, welcome to this chat about acting in games. I tried for a pun, the role of acting in games, and thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I thought about introducing you, which I can do, or I thought I would just ask, would you mind introducing yourselves and a little bit about your experience with acting in games and how you feel about that sort of thing? Would that be all right?
Yeah. Oh, me first. Hello, everyone. My name's Kirsty Gillmore. I am a voice and performance director and a casting director and a dialogue producer for games and also for animation as well. But we're talking about games, so I'll focus on games. I've worked on over 60 titles in various forms, ranging from everything from very big games, very big AAAs, down to micro indies made by sort of 2 or 3 people, or even fewer than that. Probably the ones that people have heard of, Baldur's Gate 3, which I worked on for almost 4 years. I've worked on Valorant, I've worked on 2 Call of Duty titles, and a whole host of very, very wonderful and exciting and creative indies. I'm very privileged, I'm based in the UK, and I'm very privileged to work with devs and actors and creatives all over the world, which is great. And I really, really love games. And I have been a game player for 30 years. So we'll probably just leave that there in terms of moving on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Samantha Béart. You probably know me for being that indie dating sim called Baldur's Gate 3. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm a BAFTA-nominated actor. I was also longlisted for the excavation of Hobbs Barrow, which, if you like, cozy, creepy folk horror in the style of The Wicker Man and a bit of Lovecraft, and that's for you. It's really good. It's a short game as well. It's a good one. And I've just been allowed to talk about Absalom, which is a beat-em-up from Dotemu, and another new French studio called New Tales, former Blizzard devs. We're doing Fading Echo with them, and we've got some of the Critical Role cast supporting me in that, so that's been very cool. Imagine we'll talk about that soon. But I'm a classically trained actor. I sort of trained in everything but audio games, DTRPGs, all the things I now do, which is more about a testament to how good a well-rounded, theatrical training as we get in Europe is. So I could go on and on in detail, but I just thought, do the game thing, do the classical actor thing, and then we'll work out anything else that's interesting.
Well, it's good, because you're leading me into question 2 on my little list here, which was actually because the conversations we've had, this is one of the reasons I really wanted to do this chat, is that it is something that is becoming very, very, in some ways, very visible and very invisible as a process, acting in games. But most of the people who I know who are doing anything significant in it did not come from games specifically. They've come through different avenues. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about coming at it from a different angle, and what are the differences between what you may have trained at or what your previous experiences and games acting specifically.
When you took the breath.
Take a breath. Right, so I should say that I, as a voice and performance director, I direct actors for vocal performances, but I also direct them for motion capture, for mocap, and also for performance capture, for PCAP, and any kind of combinations of those. My background is a combination of audio and theatre. I trained in music, and I also trained in theatre in New Zealand, where I'm from. Anybody going, what is that accent? It's a light New Zealand accent. The games industry in New Zealand is still very new. It's been around for a while now, but it wasn't when I was training there. You couldn't go and do a game design degree. That wasn't a thing. And there wasn't the idea of acting in games was something I never even thought about until I got to the UK. And my background into games does come from a a more kind of a audio plus a performance background, and that's pretty common actually going into performance and games. You'll find that people will come from traditional acting backgrounds, particularly in the UK, people come from theatre backgrounds. In the US, it's more likely to be a screen background, TV or film. But it is, what's interesting about performance in games for me is that it is all your acting still applies, and all your as performers, any type of acting training you've done will feed into your games performance, and as directors, any kind of directing you've done will feed into games performance. You are directing, you are directing people doing voices, or you are directing people in space, moving and reacting and acting. So all of those skills are really applicable. I think what the big difference is for me when I'm working with actors, particularly actors who haven't worked on games before, is the interactivity of and the experience of games, and what I like to call 360-degree acting. Because with a games experience, if anybody's ever heard me talk about this, I bang on about this so much, but I still think it's really relevant. But basically, film, TV, and theatre are linear experiences for the most part. You will see a story, you will see part of someone's story, you will see part of somebody's story. It is a linear experience. You are passive, you sit there and watch. However, whether you're in an audience or whether you're watching on however you're consuming your media, and you start at the beginning and you get to the end and you have no control over where that goes. But obviously, as we all know, games are interactive. And what that means as a performer is that you have to be prepared to play a character not just for the bit of the story we see, but potentially all of the story. And obviously that's going to change. Some games are more linear than others. But what I say to actors is that you have to think about the character in 360 degrees. So we're not just seeing them in a part of their life where they're angry. We're not just seeing them in a part of their life where they're just, experiencing this one bit of the story. We're seeing them where you have to think about how can they be, what are they like when they're overjoyed? What are they like when they're betrayed? What are they like when they're betrayed by someone they love? What are they like when they're frightened? What are they like in all these different situations? Because the game may be able to take you there. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a really good example of that, because you are with these characters for such a long time, and you get to see them. You get to see Karlach when she's overjoyed, when she's overwhelmed, when she's angry, when she's flirty, really flirty.
Touch-starved, I used to say. 10 years.
Yeah.
Touch-starved.
But when and that's a big thing, and that's got to be something that you have to be prepared as a director to go on a journey with your actors and make sure that they feel supported in every part of their journey of that. And that's a big thing that actors kind of get, like, I can do this character really well, great, but can you do them when they're being electrocuted? Can you do them when they're climbing out of a hole? Can you do them when the person that they want to date more than anyone else in the world is in love with someone else? Could you do all of that? Because potentially you might have to.
Yeah. I think I could possibly add to that answer.
Can you play them being electrocuted?
Yeah,
is the
well,
question.
Funnily enough, when I did the English language localization for Demon's Souls, knowing that it was a Japanese game, I'm a female voice B, if you would like to play the remake. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm Tav. I'm a Tav in Demon's Souls. Not that I was told that or anything till after the game came out, but no, I was being electrocuted, and being a fan of Japanese games, I did the whole. I love Zelda, and they were like, no. And also, you die a lot in this game, so, you've kind of been through it a few times. But actually listening to the original Japanese version and just a gasp or something versus the Western version, they're completely different, and you can really hear that. But in terms of what my theatre feeding into games?
Yeah, because we've talked a bit about this, this idea that sometimes there are significant misconceptions of what an actor in games is. And so one of the things you and I have talked about a lot is this, the benefits of doing a theatre acting training.
Yeah, which means you're prepared for anything. And that's what happens. You go in the room and then you find out that there's mocap. And if you've only acted from here up, good luck, especially when you're playing fantasy creatures or you're playing multiple creatures or something. Obviously, you're not doing anything too complicated because there's specialists for that, but just, a bipedal variety of characters, you might come a bit unstuck with that. we always used to try and work out, and Gabriel was one of the performance directors on Baldur's Gate 3, that this was it was a combination of theatre and film, because you have that 360 thing, because it's mocap, but you've got cameras as well, and you're doing it line by line on that game. Every game's very different. I didn't get to act with other people on that one, which reminded me more of like doing radio, I suppose. And I came in off doing sci-fi and fantasy radio a lot. And then I'm just, I play video games. I'm not seeing anyone that sort of resembles me in any way. And then I'm playing Mass Effect 2, and there was a female option. And I thought, yes. And Jennifer Hale was being a tough chick in space. And I went, that's what I do. I do that for radio. So I could do that. And then I started pursuing that. And because there's a lack of casting directors, or that traditional pipeline where everyone has one role, as a gamer, someone actually wants to do more of that stuff. And where I'm being more accepted on merit and not my appearance holds me back, unfortunately, in the UK, as well as my gender representation. We could talk about that if you want. But not a problem in non-visual media, I found. So, of course, I want to pursue that. And I play games, obviously, and I really enjoy them. But there isn't an easy way to, once you're through the door, as it were, there's no through the door. You did that project, and I think the games industry is so siloed, you're not necessarily remembered for the next one or anything. So I've always found I have to kind of start from scratch, and that was always why I went to conventions, conferences, and actually just met devs face to face.
Yeah, actually that brings me to another question I was going to have, because there's such a difference in the medium that you may be doing a completely different form of acting, or even a different form of technology. Is there something in that, and especially with things changing, is that something that you're finding challenging? Is it something that's really exciting? Is it something that is proving particularly easy or not, given your background?
I quite like it. I like the challenge, and I've had no two have been the same. I did a bit of dialogue for a game where I got to work with another actor in the room with a face cam, which is the first time I've ever worked with that. And I wasn't too self-conscious. I didn't put dots all over my face or anything. But I had to do some sort of weird eyebrow kung fu before every take, just for them to get it. I hope they got something useful. But it's not likeness, it's for I guess it's for animation, because you guys will know more about that than I do. But, it's just the novelty of it. And I'll do that for 2 days, and that project's done. And then you do another one where, I did one recently where they told me it was mocap and voice. And because I did the two together at Baldur's Gate, I've assumed they're not doing them together. So they've just doubled my time in the studio. Thanks, lads. Thanks, guys. But I did go in my workout clothes, ready to go. It looked like a right twat. There's just a room with a microphone in it. Oh, no. So there we go. They do give you your own suit. I don't know why I wore workout gear. I didn't need to do that anyway.
You show up in your own mocap suit. It's like, I'm ready to go.
Can you imagine going, I know you've got your own system, but trust me.
It's like dressing for
I'll
the
take it,
occasion,
lads.
right? It's just like, I was going to wear that. So, bless. But we were talking about this before as well. Does playing games help doing what you're doing? Because I know we've talked a bit about, working with actors or people in the industry who are not used to games at all, and that you've had a process of that, and then working as two people in this industry who actually do actively play games. Does that help, or is there a way that that's engaged with what you're doing now in terms of your work?
Oh yeah, I think it massively helps. I mean, I understand how games work. I understand how games are, made in sort of a very high level way. I wouldn't, don't really know that much about design, but one of the things that I realized quite early on that makes me a better performance director for games, is to understand how games are made. So I know what sort of responses a player might need to hear. There's a reason why we say, that door's locked. And knowing why that needs to be there in a game, it will help me say to an actor who's like, but why am I saying that? I can be, actually, yeah, sorry. That was.
It feels like it was based on something.
On something, something truthful, Josephine, something truthful.
Yeah, you speak your truth.
I'm speaking my truth.
Gotcha.
And they were, but when an actor asks why, I can say, that we need to have a line in here to show so that the player doesn't just keep trying the damn door, because the narrative of the game needs them to move on and do other things. And if we don't have something that tells them it's locked, players will be like, no, like a cat with a bloody toy, over and over again, and knowing why as a player, knowing what makes me frustrated, knowing that, whisper it, people skip cutscenes. But they do, and knowing that dialogue isn't necessarily that important to everybody, and I had, as a dialogue specialist, that hurts my soul, obviously. But it's really important for me to know, like, when something is very key to a game, and when and it helps me to pick out themes and go, this is a key line, like this is a really important plot point, so this is important. All this stuff, nice actor, where you talk about your childhood, is character background, and it's lovely, and obviously we're going to spend time on it, but this bit here, these 2 lines, where you talk about how the player can find the key, in the shack down the road, that's actually what we're after. That's what we need to make sure is clear and is understandable and truthful. The rest of it is lovely, but people can skip that. I don't actually tell actors that they can skip it, because they won't like that. Yeah, but I think knowing that's really important, and also the fact that when you record dialogue for games, obviously you're recording it while the game is being made. Sometimes if it's a very short game, I might get a script and the game's already done. But even like I was directing a game. I've been directing a game very recently where it looked like to me that the script was finished. But during the sessions, I discovered that actually they had, in the intervening times, while we were booking actors and that actually decided to make changes. They might add more characters. They might change the ending. So actually the script is never done. A game is never done until it's ready to be shipped. And I think knowing that you're always in the process of a creation, it's always creation, and knowing that, you will not get things in order, things will be out of order, and it's up to me as a director of the performers to make sense for the performer. Here you are, this is where your character is in the game, this is what they might do, this is what's coming up. We're now jumping back to the start of the game. Remember when we did these a year and a half ago? Well, now we're going back there because we've added more stuff, so let's catch you up on where we are. I tend to say at the beginning of sessions of a lot of, I do some live service games, so continuing games, we come back and we do chapters of it. So I tend to go, previously on this game, here we are, this is where your character is, this is what's happening. We did that a lot with Baldur's Gate. Okay. So, you are now in Baldur's Gate, yay, we've made it to the city, and now you're about to go, and you are going into the shop with the sex-positive Dragonborn character. And we're going to have a conversation, and yeah, so this is and that's something that's really, so I think if I didn't play games, a lot of it I just wouldn't understand the connections. Yeah. Although I have to say very quickly that there are I am seeing a little bit of a trend of some game devs who say we want someone to direct who's a film director. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is it just a trend, or
I don't know. I think
don't want you to ask a question that might.
No, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, because I'm not a film director. So it's but I think there's still kind of like performance directors for games are here, and film directors are like, So there's a certain amount of, for want of a better word, snobbery around it. So people are like, oh, they'll do a better job, and it's like because they're film directors, yeah, and that's quite upsetting. But yeah, I've had that a few times where people are like, we would have loved you to do this, but the devs wanted a film director. Yeah, who'd never directed, didn't know. Yeah.
Pinnacle of art, film, of course. I would say that genre really helps me. If you're not going to give me the actual name, we'll probably dig around with the union and find out what that name of your game is. But it really does help me give a better performance. Something like Baldur's Gate requires something that's almost operatic, I'd say, in terms of energy and what you give it, versus maybe a cute little point and click thing that's going to be more intimate. And you just the door example is great, because in point and click, obviously, you have dialogue for every possible combination of things, and I know that, so I'm not going to get angry in the session when I'm going, well, wait, you wouldn't put the hamster with the handkerchief, like what's that about? So what I do is always, yeah, exactly, but I'll comment. But I mean, what I'm saying is, a lot of actors, if an actor didn't play, they would be like, why am I saying this? Yeah. So classic being, door's locked. Still locked. It's still locked. And then I just go, yes, it's still locked. So, can you just stop clicking? So I've had a game that's really embraced that. They know I play. So it's become like, no, that is the most ridiculous thing. What's come over me? Have I gone in temporarily insane? And you just love all that fourth wall breaking. And it's great. You get more out of the actor in the room. We can give you more of a performance. It's great. And then when it actually comes to marketing, yes, that's a thing. You can sell it off your actor nowadays. It's really cool. I'd say about 5% of games companies have bought into this idea, and we're still getting the whole, well, we'll tag you on social media. And you go, oh, really? We can help each other. This would be good. What else is there to say?
Well, I could ask
knowing
you
your-
about that, but I have a question that could go in another direction.
Oh,
I was going to
yes.
say, because so interesting that you're talking about coming in at different parts of the sort of like process of making a game. And I know you'll come at different times in that as well. And I know there's different information given depending on the company. I was so interested because we were talking about Faded Echo, and I hope it's okay to talk about this.
I'd love to talk
You were
about
saying what's so interesting is having an opportunity to actually interact with the gameplay before taking on the role itself.
Yeah.
Has that had an impact, you feel?
Yeah, hugely. So I didn't audition. There was a straight up offer. This is bizarre, right? The sort of smaller the games, the more that you have to jump through hoops. But big game, second time a big game has gone, oh, would you like this role? Yes, please, thank you very much. There was no NDA, which is a first for a bigger game like that. I'm on the Discord. I'm keeping a low profile, but it's got that sort of Lucasfilm. You're all too young to know what that means. It's got a Lucasfilm vibe. So original Star Wars movies, open studio. So every department can see each other. It's a wonderful thing. And if you can't do that, just read throughs where, there's a member of a member from each department, let's say, in there, just so you know what everyone does. It's really helpful down the line, particularly as, some people are going to get more time restriction and others aren't. And just so we understand what we're all going through, it's just a lot easier. I don't know why we don't do it. But yeah, so I got invited to the barbecue, which I can't make because I'm here. But they're so sweet, and they're from Lyon, New Tales, and they came up to London and took me and my agent out for lunch. You don't have to do that, but we like it. We like it a lot. And then they just showed me the trailer and everything, and they said we want you involved in the marketing. So if you want a Steam key, and I said, well, yes, because that allows me to talk with authenticity about how otherwise I'm really excited, isn't it cool? But the fact that I've played it, it's a thing where it's quite Zelda looking at the moment, and you can turn into water or poison, and you affect the environment around you like that. There's a lot of lava. You turn into steam on the lava, and it flows beautifully, and it's so cute. And I wouldn't be able to say it with so much enthusiasm had I not actually played it. I don't think this experience will happen again, but I'm enjoying it at the moment. Yeah, I hope it starts a trend.
Yeah, it might.
But then we have that thing even on like radio dramas where the actor comes in, been told not to share that you're in a new Doctor Who radio drama, and they'll just take a picture of the front cover and put it straight up on social media. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to matter what you've told them. So I get why these heavy NDAs are in place. But it's just been a really refreshing experience to be able to see that. I mean, a lot of the time, I did this other game I've done, the Dotemu game, the Absalom. I could see my character's fighting style. It's a beat 'em up, basically, but with RPG and fantasy elements. Why not? And I was able to see how they move in the world, and that helped me place that voice. It had to be a little bit, lighter or whatever than I was imagining, just fitting it to the visuals. A lot of the time, you just get one still image, and you just got to work that one out. So it just gives us as much information as you're cool with, and it just really helps. It cuts that time down. You will save money. That's the thing. Go for it.
Yeah, no, because it's so interesting to see such a different process. And this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I've been lucky enough to have these chats with you individually and collectively. So the vast differences that happen from company to company. We understand some of them and we wish they were other ways than others. But I can imagine it's a particularly interesting, difficult, challenging task to say, here's a photo of a character. Or we're not even going to tell you what the character is. How do you direct that? How do you act that? And in some cases it makes perfect sense. In other cases you wish it was different. Are you seeing any changes other than having this one unusual outlier at the moment? Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think just the bin fire that is our industry at the moment has had like the massive amounts of studio closures and redundancies, I think, have really changed the way people do things, some in positive ways. I'm seeing a lot of studios, coming up who are being formed by people who have been made redundant by larger companies or have worked at larger companies, got disillusioned with the way they work and wanted to do something different and wanted to start something different. And that's, time will tell. We'll see how that works out. So I see people with very positive ideals and very positive goals going forward, and that's really great. But I also see things in the opposite direction where people are like, we have to be, people are so nervous and afraid that everything gets kind of even more locked down. So as a freelancer, and I am a freelancer, I'm a contractor who comes in and works on a lot of different games, I have a real each game is very different. But a lot of indie games small teams I feel quite integrated into the team at times. We talk about the characters together. I feel like I'm having a real hand in talking about how the player experiences these characters, which I should be. But other games, I'm very much held at arm's length. So I am, and there are great games that I'm working on where I really don't know that much about the characters, because they don't want me to know, and that's quite frustrating, because it's a real drip-free process where I'm like, we're looking for an actor with, who's like, I don't know, 6 foot tall, masculine presenting, doesn't matter what ethnicity they are, Australian, And I'm like, great, can we have any more information about the character? No. Can you just give us a list, based on that? I'm like, but really good actors. Cool. Wow. Sure, yeah, it's really, and that's really frustrating, because it's people, I understand why people are doing it, they just don't want to give that much away. But it just means, it feels that people are coming from a place of fear. And I do understand in the industry, my God, the amount of games that I've supposed to been working on, and I've just had things cancelled and pulled. I've had months and months of work gone, because contracts have just, disappeared and games have been pulled. So I totally understand, but it does make things, I think particularly as freelancers in the industry where we are coming in and doing a lot of different things, it can feel quite isolating. And I'm feeling that a lot at the moment, quite isolated in what I do. I say I'm integrated into some teams, and I am, but it's always a temporary thing, and it always feels very, you're locked out of a lot of things. Yeah.
No, I can appreciate that frustration. It makes the examples when it's not like that all the more obvious. And what's so interesting is I've been noticing, we talked a little bit about this, is that, as you say, as there is a little more visibility, and not a lot, of certain roles in the acting process, that some roles can then be put forward in sort of like a public sense of like, hey, this actor is in this game, or this is being produced in this way. Which roles and what processes would you like to see more visibility being given to? What would we see more light being shed on?
I would love to see a games launch at San Diego Comic-Con with someone from each department on a panel just talking about how they made the damn thing. That's all I want to see, and I don't understand why it's not happening, right? As a player, let alone as a performer, we love behind the scenes. Everyone loves it. Why is this not being documented and shown? And it breaks my heart. Like, really does. The film for so long, and only TV for a little while, really under Russell T Davies in the UK, started to do behind the scenes. It just hurts me a lot, because you've got that factor when the game is out and everything. Then, of course, you've got the fact that you can work on a game for years and it's axed or it's acquired and you can't talk about that ever again. And I don't get that either. You can't refer to it on your CV. I've done contracting for all sorts of, private or government companies, but I'm allowed on my CV to say that that's what it was, even if it's not specific. The erasure of people in the industry is quite disturbing to me, actually. And I just hope as more actors are sort of stepping into it, we can bring people with them. It really is. We keep saying it's not just one person. And I get this a lot of conventions, I'll go, but Sarah Bayless's writing was incredible. I'm like, yeah, but you da-da-da. And I went, yeah, but I had a lot of help. And they're like, Sit down, take the flowers. And I'm like, yes, but a lot of people made this. And I know where I'm going to get up and went, yes, I did this alone. It was just me. I'm not comfortable with it. And I think a lot of other actors aren't comfortable with it. But also there's a whole new thing of actors who would just preferred working in games. There's myself and a couple of other folks. So we are now pursuing that, and that's unusual. And there's no sort of, certainly on this side of the pond, there's no sort of, no one's walked that path before. So we're pioneering that, and we're hoping that it's a positive thing. But yeah, it can only be, I was talking to a journalist last night and saying, like, why aren't we in mainstream media? Why is it only ever a fortnight? GTA 6 is going to be in the press in a negative way, I think, next year. It's just the same story, the basement dweller, over and over and over again, and that's it, and it hasn't moved on. They need to basically run media. I think they actually need to be in those jobs. Yeah.
No, it's so fascinating because you see like big productions where games cross over. Because this fireside chat was originally going to be, unfortunately, Ville from film Gotland is no longer. No, I was about to say
No longer with us.
he's no longer with us. No, he's not here, as in no longer with us right now because he's on another island doing something else. Sorry,
still
Ville.
alive. He's
We
still
love you,
alive.
darling. We're very sad. Very sad he's not here with us right now.
Right now.
Okay, good. Jesus Christ, I'm getting into trouble. So, you know, about talking about the sort of crossovers between film and games and watching things like the Last of Us TV show being so successful and getting the same crap it got before, but still very successful. And one of the things that, because I was watching the series, is every episode would come out and then they would have 12 little vignettes on YouTube about this little group did this and this team did that and here's a talk about the sort of like art director and so forth and so forth. And then we'll have a podcast where we'll talk about the, you know, and so there seems to be some awareness, at least in one arena and then not in the other. But there does, I mean, you were saying just now that there are actors who are or performers of any kind who are interested in working more exclusively in games. So there must be a pull there, but then at the same time there is a
We don't
dissonance.
talk to each other, do we? So they probably don't know that. There's a whole bunch of us. You just reminded me, actually, there was a release a couple of years ago called, was it The Making of Karakitea? Which was about
Yes.
exactly that. It wasn't really a video game. We were judging it for a BAFTA, one of the BAFTA categories. But there was so little game in it. It was more documentary. But everyone loved it. I don't know names, but it's the guy who went on to do Prince of Persia. But this was just before that. So he's got a letter from John Romeo just fanboying all over him. And it's really cute. And his dad helped him. His dad was a composer, but he was also the model for the main character. And it's just delightful. And we need more of that, I think.
No, it's it's sort of for those of you who don't know, it's based on a game from like 30-some years ago called Karate.
I think it's karateka, they say.
Karateka.
Karateka.
Okay, good. And it's really fascinating. And yeah, it was sort of this process and it's very sort of indie, sort of like throwing things together because the processes weren't there yet. And to some degree, it's still a really young industry. And it's so rare to see that documented. Do you see any of that coming out of being such a young industry? Is it that? Is it something that you feel like we might be moving towards? I'd love to see more behind the scenes.
Not the level of NDAs that we've got. I've always said to people, like, if I'm being seen for a Marvel movie for 2 roles, you know, like, put your hands up, but that actually happened. And then, you know, I get a script, it's got my name run through it, so if I leak it, that's, you know, but I know that I was in, you know, it would be, I don't know, a Daredevil movie or whatever, you know, I know what that is. If I do the video game version, I don't know what I'm in. It's the same company, same property. It's got a completely different set of locks around it. It's completely inaccessible. So yeah, I at the moment, because they're seen as 2 different industries, even though they're telling the same stories. Quite get it, yeah. I don't think they want to. I think if they wanted to, and then you got to ask, why don't they want to? And maybe that's another 1-hour discussion.
I tell you what, we should invite them
Why
here.
the secrecy?
Yeah.
We'll have to pick them up in the middle of the night and just bag over the head into the van.
There's a challenge.
Yeah.
So if that happens,
Challenge
if
accepted.
you see a headline, you know who it was.
I just want things to be fair in games.
I think what's interesting, this is slightly off the topic of acting, but while we're on games and there is like, and I don't know what it's like in Sweden or in Scandinavia in general or in Europe, because we're no longer part of Europe in the UK. But I know that there is, I've seen, you know, like there are various grants in the UK for film and TV. And people like the BFI have like a, yay, we're giving this money and this grants to film and TV and games. And also film and TV and maybe games. And, you know, it's kind of like there'll be like 5 different categories and one of them you can get a bit of money for your game. But the others will all be about creating your film and TV. And it feels like, I saw this recently on a slide, a friend attended a whole thing about it. And I just thought, that's a sop. You know, that's just like a little, oh yeah, games, that £1 billion industry, you have a little bit of money. Have a little bit of money. Yeah. And I think until we start treating games as an equal form of media, then we are not going to see this kind of, you know, behind the scenes, this kind of focus on that. And yeah, I would love to see more behind the scenes stuff with games. I'd love to see I'd love to see the idea of the solo dev or the auteur destroyed completely. I really have a real problem with this because it's never one person, making anything. Like even the guy who made Balatro, Local Thunk is essentially one dude, but he did make a lot of that by himself. But there's also the publishers involved with it to make it. Yeah. He also hired a composer to do it. He got a lot of mates to do playtesting. It's kind of I think that really damages the games industry to say one person made this. And we had that recently at the Summer Games Fest. Love
Keeley.
That. Jeff Keighley.
Very famously pro-worker.
Pro-worker. But man of the people, I think we can say.
Well, yeah, especially with throwing people out of the Game Awards the other year for them wearing union pins. Great guy. But no, I think he's really supportive. But in light of all these, he's not here. You can't get me, Jan. Come, I'm right here in Sweden. Let's do this. Just interesting timing after years of this industry being decimated to go, you know what, you don't need that many people anyway. Yeah. That's the message I'm getting off it, and it's gross.
Yeah, Expedition was made by 30 devs. Yeah, that's absolutely. There are only 30 people in those credits.
Does that include the 10 actors?
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I have a real problem with that because this game, especially the way that the industry is at the moment, people rely a lot on contractors, people rely a lot on freelancers, a lot on outsourcers, and there is a thing where at least with film and TV, a lot of those, they will be like, oh, and all of the animation was done by this studio, and people can talk about it. But, there's a big thing about people who have worked for hundreds of hours on games and had hundreds of hours of person power to have, like, who have done the art and the animation and the audio and everything, and everything else. The QA, my God, QA, localization. Yeah. And they'll just be left out of the conversation. Yeah, we did this with 30 people, and we localized it into 15 languages ourselves, because we have that. Of course you did. No, of course you didn't. But and the person happily playing Expedition 33, there's in France and in any English-speaking country, you've already got another 10, 15, 20 more people to make just those two languages happen. So I'd love to see more of that. Yeah, more kind of acknowledgement that it takes a village. Yeah. Yeah.
Are we promoting that now?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do. I'm doing like that was my sneaky. Yeah, I thought
that's very subtle. No one noticed at all.
Yeah. You're welcome to. You know how I love that takes a village. But
we came here last year and spoke about it. So I don't know how many of you in the room, but I promised it'd be back in the fall. I didn't say which fall, did I? So we are looking to film something that isn't in my bedroom. It'll be in a studio, and it was just a case of getting sponsorship money and me having the time to do it. So it'll look nice. So expect that before the end of the year, I think. Yeah. And we're looking at having a round table. A new producer of this spiffy thing wanted to actually get past guests back in and rant in this way about the state of the industry. But the nice thing is, because I got people from so many different disciplines, it's quite a nice setup at the table. So we'll have to do that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'm really excited. It's for those of you who weren't there, and you're very welcome to look it up on YouTube. We had a talk last year because one of my real passions is this idea of, and I know it was yours, and this reason why I wanted to bring you here was to talk about this idea that it takes a village of a huge number of people to make something. And I think it's so interesting that we brought up sort of this idea of fear, that it's almost like, I think as an industry, we still think of like games as such a tiny, tiny slice, and if anybody gets a little bit of credit, we won't get as much credit. And to be generous in my reading, I think it's from that fear of like, we want to survive, especially when it's this really scary time. So we can't possibly acknowledge that more people did this than us, if that's the nice way of looking at it. There's obviously other ways to look at it. But to instead see it like, no, this is a tremendous benefit of showing how big this is, how many people can work on this. And actually, when we include everybody, that lifts everybody up. I mean, the fact that you are included from the get-go with certain games that have just been announced, you're now promoting that, going, I'm in this, I can say
Isn't it great? I've played it.
Yeah, I've played it. Look how cool this is, and your Instagram, and there it is, and so forth. And it's those sort of things that are almost invisible.
And by the way, we do this for free. We promote it for free. You don't have to put it in a contract. We're enthusiastic about the work we do. It's just a crazy idea to go, no, you're good.
Yeah.
You're fine. We'll do a tweet.
Yeah, actually relying on the passion of the people who are making the thing and acknowledging who they are, they'll maybe want to acknowledge you back. You know?
Revolution.
I know.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll catch on.
I know I'm going to get into trouble, aren't I?
We're all in trouble because I threatened Jeff Keighley. Didn't mean it, Jeff. But
It was there. It was there. No,
that was that. I said it.
I'm right
We were
there
there.
with them. I'll have it. I'll have it.
Yeah, go stab him. You all have to join in. Like we're going to lock the
everybody's-
doors.
Yeah. So
And then
you're
we'll be
all
fine.
here. You're all implicated.
You are. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Sorry about.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right,
I
you're
think
done.
we've got them.
Yeah, good job. We've got an army. It's good.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. We've got a few minutes left. I thought it might be really nice to open to a couple questions. If you're interested, I'm going to have to. Thank you
Do you
very
want to pass
much.
the mic around?
I was going to do that.
Yeah.
You could keep yours because they're
Okay.
going to ask me questions. And if there's anybody who's got one, please feel free. Oh, we've got one here. We've got one there.
Hi, thank you very much for a lovely fireside chat. I wanted to ask, because you were talking about advising the actors about the 360 acting and everything, and what is, like how you, Samantha, mentioned that showing the gameplay really, really helps. Do you have any advice for devs that are maybe searching for this kind of service and help with their game development, like to make that first step to not be so intimidating? Because when you are trying to get first voice acting or mocap and stuff, it can be intimidating in the sense of, what do I have to prepare? How can I help this process? So
Yeah. Go for it.
So, without making this a shill for what I do, there are people out there who specialize in this, like myself, who can act as your go-between, essentially become a translator between beautiful actors and who you're looking for. So there are people out there, you can find people who are casting directors and VO specialists who will tell you that, who will help you to find them, to find who they are. But in terms of if you're looking to look for actors yourselves, which is perfectly fine, then what actors will want, the best things that you need to kind of nail down to start with is have a really clear idea of your character. Like, what are you looking for? The more specific you can get will help you, because if you start doing like public casting calls and you're like, they're white, they're 30, they can have an American accent or a British accent or like a light European accent, and I don't mind what gender expression they have, you are going to get inundated with thousands and thousands. So really nail down not just what their kind of baseline characteristics are, their dating profile, but also their bio. What sort of person are you looking for? Have an idea of what, but be open, I would say from that, be open to it, be open to what your characters can change and be open to who comes along. And have an idea of, if you're going down the casting when you want to actually find actors to do it, then I would say have a really clear idea of what your pipeline is. Who's going to handle the casting? Who's going to handle the voice production? Who's going to handle recording? Who's going to do it? I see a lot of devs go, we really want actors. Great. So we'll just put a casting call out, and it's really, we've got characters, but then we get inundated with all these people, and now we have no idea what to do with them. We don't know how to narrow them down. We don't know how to say no to people. We don't know how to say yes to people. We don't know what the fees are going to be. We don't know any of this kind of stuff. So I would say just really have an idea of what your characters are, understand how much you're going to be paying them, know what your pipelines are in advance, and in terms of, and what you're prepared to show them. Yeah, but don't stick it all on display. Don't put all of that in the casting call. You know, you want to give what I've suggested indie devs to do is that if they've got a trailer out, that can be a really good thing. A trailer, or if you've got any like little playable, like little demo that's up on YouTube or what have you. Those are really good. Links to that in your casting call will be really, really helpful. Tell them what sort of game it is. And just be really, really realistic about what your fees expectation is. You can ask actors to set their own fees. Bear in mind that there are standards around the world. All of this goes back to do your research, and there's a reason why there are experts out there to help you with this. But yeah, it's a very, before you do anything, really think about who's going to handle this pipeline, who's going to do this, because otherwise you end up, I see a lot of indie devs go, we want to do this, here's our all auditions, great, and they're like, oh yeah, but you're doing art, and you're doing animation, and you're doing this, and nobody's really got the skills to kind of deal with it. So just be really clear about what you're looking for and who is going to handle this. I mean, I am also a producer, so that's something I'm always thinking about. Like, otherwise, it's just going to extend your timelines. And yeah, you can go, we want actors. Cool. You send out a casting call, you get all these auditions back, great. And then you don't do anything with it for 6 months because you don't have time and nobody's going to do anything with it. Then you go back to the actor and go, hey, we really want you to do this. And they're like, yeah, I'm not available now because it's 6 months later. Yeah. Does that help? Yeah. Cool.
I would love a little trailer or a GIF or something when you send that script through. That's it, really. That really helps prepare for that audition or whatever.
Yeah, game style. I think people leave out, like, they tell us what the story is, but if you've, yeah, but I mean, it's going to be useful. But people saying, look, it's an RPG, it's a beat 'em up, it's a shooter, it's a sci-fi game, it's set in a world with woodland creatures. Whatever you want to do, give them the tone. So. It's a JRPG style, and we're after this kind of tone can be really, really useful. I get a lot of people going, we're after kind of the sort of thing in Genshin is a big one. We're after that kind of style. Cool. Okay. Well, then the actors know where they have to place it. Or we're after The Last of Us. It's trauma. It's all trauma and mushrooms and trauma. Yeah. And mushrooms.
It's a casting call, I like it.
Yeah, trauma and mushrooms. Trauma and mushrooms.
Hello, this is more for the flip side of the acting side. And I was wondering because you mentioned it briefly about sort of gender presentation and like your own gender identity in terms of like then doing the acting and the performance. Like if you could say a little bit more about sort of navigating a still relatively binary industry as a gender non-conforming person and what advice you might have for fellow gender non-conforming people.
Say games are your friend.
Cool.
I've never had a problem in games.
Yeah.
Everywhere else is the problem. Because I would say if you are playing an action-based femme character, you're already gender non-conforming, and that's what I've found. And for a Westerner who's only used the term non-binary for the last, 7 years, there's a whole bunch of people before that who don't have that word available. So I'm not going to lock myself down and go, I'm only going to play characters who've existed in the last 7 years onwards, right? It's just whatever it is. And if it does come into the game, maybe that's a discussion to be had. But I'm an actor at the end of the day. I was socialised female. I know what it is. So, yeah, I'm cool. I'm open. I'm certainly not... And I know that people feel differently about it, and absolutely stick to your guns. But also know that might narrow things down. Yeah. But I found it was, first of all, super queer industry. Congratulations. It's great. You're fine. I love when people come out and they're like, yes, we know. You wouldn't be here otherwise.
Can I make?
Yeah, of course.
Just a note about, just to fit on for all of you who are developers out there developing your characters, be really open to different expressions. I'm sure all of you are anyway, but really think about what's more important, that your character is male, is female, is that important, or is your character's life experience more important? Could you have the same idea with somebody who, with a character who might be gender non-conforming, who might be non-binary, who might be anywhere on our beautiful gender spectrum? And just be really open to that. And I think that's really, I've had that conversation with devs in the past. We had a, where we made the gender expression of the actor, ethnicity wasn't a particular concern because the characters they're not human. So that was already open. And then we made the gender expression because we had an actor that we were very keen on who was non-binary. So that we had a very big talk about what we felt the character was, and then the character was led by the actor. The same thing. Think about terms of disabilities as well. I always say that I want to keep my castings specific and open, which sounds like a contradiction in terms, but there are certain things that I think need to be really specific, and that's to do with personality and to do with how the character sees what their worldview is, and I think that needs to be specific. But I think a lot of the time, unless you are looking for a character with a particular life experience, obviously that's extremely valid. Then that's great. But yeah, if you have a game where all the characters are robots, do you have to be a non-binary robot?
I mean, that's in the copy for Absalom. So
Yeah.
I was already getting shit before I was announced.
Yeah. But also, you don't have to like if you're if there's a reason why your character presents in a very specific way, that's great. But there has to be a reason behind it for you to look that. But just in terms of, I love the idea of having characters which are, if you want them voiced or if you want them acted, where the actor's experience comes in. So and so if your character doesn't have to be white, then why don't you leave it open to the experience of the actor?
Can I quickly give Fading Echo another shout out? Because Sylvain Secchi, who's the CEO of the company, when he was pitching, I'd already accepted in my heart and probably in writing, but he was still pitching. And he said there was some pressure from investors because the main character was a woman of colour. There was pressure for them to change that in this day and age. Yeah, right. And if you've seen it, like, it doesn't matter. It's interesting that's come up. And then it was, can you make her a bit sexy? And they were like, no, she's 16 in this first game. And it's just still in 2025 we'll have to deal with that because of expectations of money folk who don't actually engage in this medium. So, but you are in the better industry for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more. So.
Yeah, cool. First of all, thank you guys so much for being here. It's really cool to hear you guys talk about the industry. I wanted to ask about like directing and acting in games. I've had previously directed a little bit of film, and like even being on like a beautiful set with like costumes and makeup and everything, it can be quite hard to get like unexperienced actors to like be immersed into like everything. And imagining doing that with like mocap, where you're like in this weird suit and like you have like dots on your face, and you maybe be solo acting. You might not even have like a co-actor.
I mean,
to
that's
act
the norm.
against.
You are solo acting.
Exactly. So like, how do you have any like tips or recommendations or like suggestions of like how to help like more inexperienced like actors like get more immersed?
Yeah, go.
Just super quick, theatre training is going to cover you because there's a style of theatre called black box, right, which the actor has nothing. There's no costume. That's mocap. It really is. And then the rest of it, like going into TV or film, it's just technical. It then becomes like, with a film camera that close in your face, we can see your thoughts. Now, you can't when I'm doing games acting, so I don't have to, there's no method, there's no having to convince you visually that I'm there. It's all vocal, physical. It's great. That's why I find it quite fun. For film, you can't cheat it like that. You absolutely, So that's what I mean. It's a technique thing. If you've got the actor that's very broad in their experience and their training, and part of the training is humiliation. So when you put them in the mocap, they're cool. It's when you bump into the other actor in mocap you haven't seen for 5 years, and it's like, sorry. Don't hug them too hard, you'll stick together.
I said I was going to wear this, yes.
That's right, exactly. So I hope that answers it a bit. But just get even a recent graduate from a good drama school will have that skill.
My first thing would be don't hire inexperienced actors. I mean inexperienced people with no acting background whatsoever. That's what you're talking about. Sorry, that's a very trite response, and I really get that people are making things on a budget. But if you hire people with no acting experience, it doesn't matter how great a director you are not going to get a result out of them. There is, we get a lot of mythology. There's a lot of mythology about like raw acting talent, I think, particularly in film.
To put me off training
for film and TV, we found them on the street, and their raw talent, just magnetism, and shone through. And I mean, great, it's a nice story, it's a nice narrative, but what they don't see is the 55 takes it took to get that one thing you're seeing, because the actor is inexperienced and didn't know where to look or what to do or how to express what they're after. And things like Adolescence, which I don't even know whether it came out in here, but it's a UK, it has come out. Yeah. So the child actor in that is very inexperienced because they're a child. That's their thing, and they wanted that for a reason. But when you work with adult actors, it will just take you a lot longer. So your first thing would be try and find at least, acting graduates or people with an acting background. I'm not a snob about how people get experience or train as an actor. I don't care where you do it, or how you done it. You can go to RADA, good for you. But it's not necessary. It's not what I'm interested in is people's experience and the fact that they've gone out and trained in some way. But for the best thing that you can do if you do and believe me, I've worked with incredibly experienced actors who just didn't really get game acting and found it really weird. So that's not even a given. They can be experienced. They can have West End credits. They can have Broadway credits. They can have been in, a much-loved film, but they get in front of a microphone or they get on a mocap stage and they don't know what they're doing. And that's fine. That's a very common experience. So The one big thing I could tell to you as a director is have a very, very clear idea of what you want your actors to do in the scene. And I don't just mean blocking, because a lot of directors will direct visually, like, oh yeah, you go over to that chair. Great. But why? Why am I going to the chair? What are you doing? Do you want them to leave? It can be really simple as, I want you to leave the room. You want them to leave the room as quickly as possible. That is your intention for the scene. That is what you're doing. You want them to leave the room. You need them to come with you desperately because there are zombies that are going to attack you. You need them to come with you. That is your intention. If nothing else, be very, very clear about what you want them to do. And you can have, like, it's your brother and they've betrayed you and you haven't seen them for 5 years. Yeah, that's all really great. But in terms of getting to the core of it, I need you to come with me now, otherwise we will be eaten by zombies, is a really good, very clear intention. So I'd say, if nothing else, just be really clear about what you want them to do. And then you'll find that if you do that and they really play into that, then a lot of your emotional beats will come, particularly if you want them to go, if that's what they're telling them, but the other person doesn't want to leave. That's where you find your tension, and that's what will drive your scene. Be really, really clear about what you want your actors to do, and that will help you, because I think I see a lot of film directors they get very tangled in the weeds of acting. No, I just want you to be angrier. Great, but what do you want them to do? What's the point? What's the point of the scene? What has to move the story on? What's the narrative on it? What do you want them to do? Go for that, and that will help.
Great. I think that's really great advice to leave this on. I honestly could, I could talk to you forever. We can just constantly have this conversation because it's so interesting, it's so in-depth, and there's so much nuance to it. And so I'm really grateful for you both to not only come and do this for us today, but to have come back to do it again. You're very welcome anytime, I'm sure everybody would agree, to carry on any kind of conversation like this. It's just always a pleasure. So thank you again, Samantha Béart, and to Kirsty Gillmore, and thank you very much for attending this fireside chat. And it's gotten really warm in here, so now it does feel...
The fire's raging!